Here it is, my AKAPADers, Over the Edge, 1979. This is one of the movies that define what film going is all about. This movie is what the Film Buff podcast is all about. We dig and we search for movies like this. I, even myself, memory hold this movie. And I want to bring you up to speed of how it came across my radar. Through a casual conversation, I want to tell you about that. But we need to go into detail about what this movie is, who's involved with this movie, and why it's absolutely important. Let's go. Over the Edge, 1979.
Camera speed, sound production, take one.
Action!
AKAPADers. We don't do it often. We have a correction. So in the beginning and maybe even in the intro for this episode, I referred to the year of this movie, 1977. I believe I say 1977 quite a few times. This movie, Over the Edge, was released in 1979. I don't know why I kept saying 77. Maybe it's because 77 is Mr. Billion, and I love that movie so much. I just got the mix up from the director, but we're going to talk about all that in a couple seconds. So stick with me. Let's go. And welcome back to another banger episode of the Film Buff podcast. We're somewhere around maybe 30, 40 episodes in of 800. We're somewhere 800 episodes deep. And if you're new here, thank you for joining me. If you need a quick pitch of what we do here, it's simple. We watch movies, we discuss movies, we get critical about movies, and we try and add something to a lot of the conversations that are either gone, misspoken of, misdirected, or lies. There's so many lies. But we try and add something to the conversation with every single film we watch. My goal is to bring you every single movie I have ever seen. We're 800 something episodes deep. We're not stopping. And then we're here, 1979, Over the Edge. This movie was memory hold by your host, by Peter A. DeLuca. I saw this movie and I forgot this movie. And then two things happened. How about this? Machete Comics is the account that I love on TikTok. Long story short, or a little bit of a pitch for him, it's a dude with a comic book collection. He makes his own comics. He talks about comics. And he's from a generation where they really made comics. Today, almost every single comic book is somehow masked or disguised as a movie pitch. But Machete Comics, I will, on my descriptions here, I will link that account. But he went through, might have been like 5 movies. And you guys got to remember, this stuff is so quick. Like, when you're scrolling. But, it's either I subscribe or it always comes up in my feed. One or the other. So Machete Comics, it's like 5 movies that I love. And he's got the DVDs. Got to give him credit for that. Sticking to that format. And the final one was Over the Edge. And I was like, wow. Like, yes, that's a movie. And I had forgotten about that movie. I've seen it with, there was I remember like a Quentin Tarantino conversation where he spoke about Keanu Reeves movie. It might have been like a surfing movie called like Red Sun or like something like that. That, I guess that also is memory hold. And around that time, I remember getting that movie because I think it was a cheap VHS or DVD from Suncoast. And I got this one because they were kind of in the same bin, in the same little area together. Because Suncoast would have a bin, and then they would have things filed, like on a rack. But I just remember watching those two movies very close to one another. Let me get the name. Give me 1 second. I gotta get the name of that Keanu Reeves movie. I didn't want to say it Because I'm thinking, like, I'm remembering the movie wrong. The movie is called River's Edge. So we have Over the Edge and River's Edge, 1986 and 1987, or 1977 and 1986. So there was like a little bit of this trend. We know a lot of the teen 80s trend movies like 16 Candles and Breakfast Club. There's like this poppy side to that. And then that pop side gets, there's a movie called Harvard Blues and St. Elmo's Fire. That pop teen movie side moves into adulthood, but they're teens, but it's more dramatic. But before that, we had Bad Kids. Even Sean Penn is in a movie called Bad Boys, which is incredible. And there's a lot of these movies, and I think we're going to embark on all of them. But this one in particular, so I'm watching this movie, and I don't quite remember how it ends. I just remember the kid in this movie banging a girl in like a sleeping bag, and that stuck out because they're really just kids in this movie. I remember a drug dealer blonde kid, like that. Like that was my type of reflection for this. So this account on TikTok got me. I mean, like as soon as I left him a comment, I just searched. I'm like, how can I watch this movie? And boom, it was available on Tubi, Tubi. It spun my head. And then a couple days later, one of my coworkers that's remote, I see him every once in a while, but he's in our office and we're sitting down. And he just mentions to me that him and his girlfriend recently watched The Outsiders, and he had forgotten how many people are in that movie. And I said, Outsiders is one of the great young Hollywood movies of all time. And it's kind of within, it's a Hollywood version of this Bad Kid era that was in Hollywood, in cinema at the time. And we're going back and forth. I'm telling him, I'm like, look, there's a little bit of a trilogy with Matt Dillon, not Matt Damon, Matt Dillon, where you have Outsiders, then you have Rumblefish. Both of those are S.C. Hilton books that were adapted by Francis Ford Coppola. Rumblefish, famously in black and white with Mickey Rourke. Outsiders, Rumblefish, and Over the Edge. And Over the Edge, you really attribute a landmark feature in this trend. So, that's how I got back into this movie. And then it was the experience of watching this film, which has such a wild ending. A perfect ending. It's hard for me to say an ending that sticks to you because I had forgotten it. But the ending sticks to you. I'm just going to contradict myself. I'm a hypocrite, but this ending is so real. I would put this movie with Laws of Gravity. It just has that grit to it. And then I gotta look up our director, Jonathan Kaplan. Most famous work. And we've done it here on this podcast. The Accused, 1988, Jodie Foster. But we know him, Project X, the Matthew Broderick one, not the party movie. Bad Girls, that's right. The Cowgirl movie. Look, Bad Girls, when that came out, people wanted that movie to shoot for the moon. Unlawful Entry. Truck Turner. Mr. Billion. The Gentleman Bandit. This guy, career filmmaker, and did some damage in TV. The idea that he makes a movie like this in 1979, AKAPAD, so I apologize. 1979. He makes this movie and then really arrives at the Academy Awards for The Accused 1988. That's what we like in a filmmaker's career. You identify good scripts. You know what to do with good scripts. You know what to do with bad scripts. You make them into good scripts. But you're there to work the movie and the story and the productions. This movie has some of the best child acting, some of the best teenage acting I've ever seen. Everyone in this movie looks like they are of the time that they're supposed to exist in. And they're kids, and they look like kids, they talk like kids, and they feel like kids. The same plot for this movie echoes in Spielberg's Poltergeist. Yes, I know he entered. Toby Hopper's, how about that? Toby Hopper, Steven Spielberg's Poltergeist. It's a real estate scheme. These kids don't like the development that's coming in around their neighborhood. Very similar to the Poltergeist, his whole gripe in that movie. The suburban sprawl was also a topic. It was a thing to consider in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So this movie has all of these things. And this movie's violent. This movie is troubling. This movie is also true and honest. The things I see in Philly alone relate to this movie. It's the eternal idea of kids wanting to grow up, thinking that their parents are not liking their parents and thinking they have to do things better and different, and it just turns out to be Lord of the Flies. This movie deserves so much study, and it's visceral, and it's hardcore, and it's just tough. And holy crap, is that tough to pull off. But he's got, our Kaplan, he's got a history in street-level violent films, and I think it comes to a culmination with this. I think part of the grittiness of The Accused comes through. Seeing through lines like this in individuals' work it's just fantastic. It's why we do this podcast. I cannot recommend this movie enough, and I cannot say that this movie is a true film. It's cinema. This movie is there to change your life. It is there for you to get your head spun, to get your head exploded, to see what a film can do. And those are all platitudes, but they're worthy platitudes for this film. Over the Edge, 1977.
Okay, that's a wrap.